hope. Right now, if we look around in the world, it's every time, but now it just seems it's so depressing. It's a lack of hope. We got North Korea getting antagonized, the threats, possible war. There's the natural disasters. There's flooding. There's earthquakes. There's fires here in California like every year. But killing hundreds of people. It's hard to hold on to hope. And I know in my family's life, me and my wife lately have been feeling hopeless. And so that's how I came to this message today. I was asking God for some hope and how to communicate that hope. How to communicate that hope so that I believe in that hope, so that I believe that there is hope for the future. It's bleak. It looks bleak. I want that hope. And so I believe this message helped me in an understanding of hope and where my hope lies. So I wanted to start with a story. And first slide. Hope may not be warranted at this point. Got the vultures flying over. That's the way it feels right now. May not be warranted. And then I thought this one was great just because I love video games. And he's got two trucks coming on and says, I hope that all the hours I spent on Need for Speed are useful. Right now. I thought that was good. All right, now we start with Joseph's story. Now, a story of hope. I mean, this guy went from a pit to ruling Egypt. I mean, he had gone through some serious, hard times to get to this point of running Egypt. I mean, seriously. I mean, he started out as a victor. He was the special child, right? And then he went to victim real quick. And I mean, not because he didn't brag about being victor. He caused the problem. Well, he just antagonized the problem, right? I mean, he was the favorite son. Everybody knew it. He got the colored coat. Nobody else did. That's right. So he's the favorite son. He's the man right now, and he is knowing it. And then he's given this dream that tells him he's going to be the man even more. So he decides, his brothers right now at this point aren't talking to him nicely. The Bible says in friendship. They're not talking to him in friendship. Like they'll talk to him like, hey, go get that goat or whatever, but they're not talking to him in friendship. So he knows there's a problem. So he comes to him, hey guys, you got to check out this dream I had. You guys ain't talking to me now, but sooner or later, you're going to be asking me for all sorts of stuff. And of course, the brothers did not take too kindly to that because they already were jealous and they were already angry. So his dad sends Joseph. I'm not going to read it all. I put up the scriptures. It's, Genesis 37 goes over how he gets into slavery and so on and so forth. So if you want to read that afterwards, you can. I just think that the story's been told so many times, right? Everybody knows about Joseph. Yeah? Everybody's heard the story of Joseph? All right, I'm seeing good. Okay. So Joseph, his dad tells him to go out to his brothers. Hey, listen, I need you to go get your brothers. So he goes out to go get his brothers. And his brothers see him coming from a distance because he's got his multicolored coat on, like, hey, I'm coming. That's right. So, hey, you guys suck. I don't. So that's just the way it goes. He's coming in, and they see him, and they're like, all right, this guy's got to die. I mean, they're serious. I mean, I got upset at my brother, but I was never to that point where I was going to sell him into slavery or stick him in a pit. I was never there. But these guys are there, right? They're at that point. And I don't know if it's just because it's Genesis, Esau. I mean, there was a lot of death going on, but these guys wanted blood. And they figured Joseph was going to go. So they said, all right, let's just put him in this pit. So they put him down in this pit. Now Joseph, the reason why he's a victor is because he was born, the Bible says he was born late in his father's years. So he's, the baby. He's the young one. So the father's, just like, hey, this is my last chance to do it right. I'm going to do it right. And he's doing right by Joseph. And so Joseph, through no fault of his own, was born last. But he gets this praise, and he's the victor. But then his brothers hate him, so now he's about to become a victim. He's coming out to get to his brothers. He's just trying to do what his dad said. Hey, go get your brothers. You don't argue with dad, right? You just go get your brothers. So he's going out to get his brothers, and his brothers plot to stick him in a pit. First, they wanted to kill him. I don't know how far off this coat. This coat must have been bright. Because the story goes from, we're going to kill him, and then they have a discussion, and no, we're just going to stick him in this pit. So then they stick him in this pit, and then they decide there's some people come along, and then they decide they want to sell him into slavery instead of kill him. So there was a saving grace. So now he's, can you imagine? Your brothers grab you, stick you in a pit. All right. At that moment in time, are you thinking, God is for me? Is there hope in this situation? All right, I'm at the bottom of the pit. He's probably yelling out for his brothers. Hey, come on, get me. And they're just leaving him down there. They're having a discussion among themselves. He knows they hate him. The despair, right? That feeling, that depression, that crap. It's going to hit the fan right now. So he's worried. The stress level's there. I don't know how to communicate this, but we've all had those times in our lives where we know it's about to, it's about to go south. It's going to go south quick, and it's going to hurt. And it could be in relationships. It could be with your wife. It could be with your husband. It could be with your dad. I remember one time, when I was younger, I went out, I was excited. I get to go camping this weekend. I was stoked. All my friends was going to be there. And I went out and I was just excited. And Heidi's like, can you show me how to start the car? And I was excited to show her how to start the car, because I was just excited. I get to go and I get to teach my sister, blah, blah, blah. And then I go out and I'm showing her how to start the car. I start it in reverse. And I back up, almost kill her, almost kill Charity, and the door slams the opposite direction. I finally stop it, and I know my dad's home. All right, if Dad wasn't home, then I'd be like, all right, I can calm down for a little bit. Mom's not going to be too bad. We'll see if we can, maybe manipulate Mom a little bit, and she'll be okay. But no, Dad's home, so the one I got to go tell is that guy. The feeling was dread, because I knew, man, my butt is going to be raw. I'm going to be in trouble. So I go in, and all the excitement from this camping trip, I'm not going to be able to go to a camping trip. I was just trying to do a nice thing, show my sister. How did I get to this point? Anyway, Dad, and for some reason, God must have spoke to him. Hey, he didn't really mean to do this, because there were some situations that Dad probably would not have handled it as gracefully as he did. So my expectation was one that was going to be, this is on, and I'm dead. So that's my expectation. There was dread there. I'm sure, it wasn't anything like getting stuck in a pit by your brothers, but I feel that emotion of dread. But out of that dread, my dad, had grace on me, which is very hard to believe at this time in life. For me, I was a punk kid. So I did not deserve grace necessarily. In this situation, I was just trying to do a nice thing. Dad realized that. And when he came in, he's like, I know you're apologetic. I could see it on your face. You didn't do this on purpose. And that grace, that feeling of grace, that all of a sudden, wait, I can go on this camping trip? I'm not going to get wrecked. And that feeling, that elation, that peace, that hope, the hope came back. So Joseph, at this point, he's stuck in slavery. He's feeling that oppression. Like, hey, what did I do to get stuck down in this pit? And the Bible says God was with him. So no matter what point in your life, even if you're going through that moment, God is with you. God is our hope. So he goes on to be in prison. After he's sold in slavery, he goes and, God says, I'm with you. So he gets sold to Potiphar, right? Potiphar is this official, the head of the security for Pharaoh. And Potiphar, since God is with Joseph, he has this feeling of elation for Joseph, like, hey, I'm going to promote you to the head of my house. And so before it's all said and done, Joseph is now running Potiphar's house. And the only thing that Potiphar says you can't touch is my wife and my food, because I'm going to eat my food. And it's my wife, right? So that's what he tells him. So through no fault of Joseph's alone, he ends up being a good-looking guy in the house. And this wife is home alone because Potiphar is a powerful man and working a lot. So the wife decides, hey, Joseph's around. He's running the place. I like this guy, He's 25. The Bible says he's good-looking. He's got good-looking in stature and in appearance, right? So the wife is like, hey, Joseph, how about you and I, behind Potiphar's back? Because he's working. He's not there. And then Joseph says, hey, listen, I'm not going to go against God. God has shown me favor, so I'm not going to do this. But the wife is ticked, and so she feels slighted. So she comes up with a way to be devious and take his coat and then blame him, and he gets thrown in prison. So now he went through a pit, got sold into slavery, then he was raised up, and he's head of the house, and he's like, holy, wow, this is going on. And I'm on top of the world. I'm running things. Maybe those dreams are going to come true. Nope. You're in prison. Boom. So there's that despair again. That feeling of dread. What do you do with that? Then it says God was with him. It's like the second verse. I got to read that. 20 and 21. Genesis 39. I just thought it was crazy. It's the same story, and he gets thrown in prison. I'm not going to think that God's with me if I'm getting thrown in prison for something I didn't do. This woman decided she wanted to be with me. I told her no. I think the outcome's going to be a lot different. If God's with me, I ain't going to get touched. But it was not the case. Okay, we're at 39, 21, 22. But the Lord was with Joseph. All right, so let's start with 20 first. So Joseph's master took him and put him into the jail, and the place where the king's prisoners were confined, and he was there in jail. But the Lord was with Joseph and extended kindness to him and gave him favor in the sight of the chief of the jailer. I wonder how much time that took, to get favor in the sight of the jailer. He was in jail. He went to jail. I can tell you that's going to be dread for me. I'm going to be like, there's no way these dreams are coming true. I must have ate some bad mushrooms or something, and these dreams they're not good. So he goes from the dreams, and he, in 40, it tells the story of him interpreting dreams for the jailer, right? So the jailer, or I can't remember if it was a jailer or if it was somebody from the Pharaoh's court. I think it was like Master Cook or something like that. Anyway, so he tells the story of these dreams. He's able to interpret these dreams because he's still with God. So even through all of this doubt and all of this, he's never blaming God for his situation. He's always with God. He always realizes there is a God. He doesn't go to the point where he's like, there can't be a God if I'm going through this. But I know there's times that my doubt raises when I'm going through the dread, when I'm going through a period of just hardship. The doubt arises, and especially if I see somebody that I know to be evil, meaning not believing in God at all, but believing in themselves and how they got there, and they are thriving. They can't stop making money. They dropped their pencil, they made $100. And I'm going through it. And I can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Then I start getting angry. Well, Lord, what? Really, is there one? Is there a God? That doubt creeps in. Joseph at this point, it does not say anything about his doubt. But he always points to God. God deciphers dreams. Let me interpret it. That's what he's saying. Saying, hey, my God can answer this. He can tell you what this dream means. So he goes to God with the dreams and boom, tells him exactly what's happened, and that happens. And out of this, Pharaoh has a dream, and then he has to decipher the dream for Pharaoh. So he goes to God and gets a dream. So now he's down and out, and then boom! This is beyond. This is way beyond. He's now in charge of Egypt. In charge of it all. He gets everything. Pharaoh just gives it to him. He's an Israelite. He isn't even Egyptian. But God brings it out of him and brings him out of these depths of despair. And I know that there is these times in life. So I looked up this timeline. I thought it was really good. Favorite son, he starts out as the victor. Then he gets down to slavery. Boom, victim. Right? Not any fault of his own. Right? Then he comes back up, and he's sort of high at that moment. He's, head of Potiphar's house. And at that point, he probably thought that was the cream. This is as high as he's going to get. Because at that point, that's an official in Pharaoh, and he is Israelite. There's no way he's going any higher than this. He is running this guy's house. And then, bam, he goes into prison. Oh, man, all those dreams, all those aspirations, shot down, dead. Then, prison. Now he's prison manager, right? So he's not as high as Potiphar's house. He's in charge of prisoners, but he's still in prison. Can't do much, but it's still a hill that he got to climb, right? Still hope there. Then, out of prison, he becomes the head of Egypt. Now, what a story of hope. Amen. Victim, victor, right? We like it when the victim becomes the victor. It's something in us. There's something in us that just enjoys that kind of story. That story where, hey, this person was down and out, but now look at them, they're on top. But then we also enjoy that story when the person on top is down and out. Oh, they've been on top too long, time to knock them down. What I'm saying is your life is like this. This is your life. You start out as a victor at some point. You have victories. There is victories. And there's victories, and then there's defeats. And that's the valleys. There's still hope that victory will come back. Even if you're in the valley. God has not forsaken you. He did not forsake Joseph, and he still had to go through the pit. He's still there. So I thought that was a great story. It is a great story. It is. It's a great story about victory and hope, and to give you hope. All right. So now I just want to cover a couple of ways that we can have hope, right? Because Joseph's story is it relevant to this time? Are we going to run the United States? Are we going to run? Right now I think the biggest thing would be, my business takes off and, it's just unbelievable. I can't stop the calls coming in from how many people want me, They just want me to work on their stuff. At that point, that's the dream that I have right now. It's not, I don't want to be president of the United States. I don't want to run, China. I don't want any of that stuff. I just want, my own little island. And so, getting put in charge of Egypt, to me, takes away from my video gaming. Joseph didn't have that, so he's okay with running all of Egypt, He didn't have that pastime. They had so much brain power to use at that time. I don't have that much. I got my phone, right? It knows more than I do. So, first thing I came up with was God is about you, or God is into you. God is about people. All right. So I don't normally do jokes in the middle of it, but I've thought that this was good because of that the parable of the lost coin. So, all right, there's this person, and they're praying to God. All right. So the person says, God, how long is 1,000,000 years to you? And then God says, it is but a second of time. And then the person says, God, how much is $1,000,000 to you? And he says, it's but a penny to me. And so then the person says, well, God, can I have a penny? Right? And then God says, yeah, just a second. Thought that was good. I thought it was good. All right, so this is just to show you that God's heart is for you when you're down and out, when you're a sinner, when you fall short. All right, this next part is, hey, you still have hope that God is for you. All right, so Jesus, God at this point has said, all right, listen, these people need an example. All right, he's seen the Israelites, and he's seen how they have fallen and how they haven't been able to uphold the covenant they have with their Lord. And he has seen them become holier than thou and all about their rules and all about their regulations. And so he's like, man, I got to send my son down there as an example so that these people know what they are and who they are and who they partner with. So he sends Jesus down, right? And so Jesus he hangs out with a lot of sinners, right? Oh, dang it. That was not supposed to happen. Sorry. Come on, do it. Yeah, there you go. Okay. I just have terrible eyes, so I'll read from here. All right, so Luke 15:1. So it says, now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathered around to hear Jesus, but the Pharisees. Now these are the Israelites that are the cream of the crop Israelites. I mean, these are the people that are like, these guys got it together. You know what I'm saying? They're the guys that they drop the pencil, they make $100. You know, these guys have it together, and they are doing it right. So Jesus he's sitting down with them. He's sitting down with the tax collectors, and he's sitting down with the sinners. But the Pharisees are looking in, and they're like, hey, what is he doing with these people? And, you know, how do we compare that to today? How do we compare that today? So we're sitting down with the prostitutes, with the people that have just robbed a house, or people that have just robbed us, or people that, you know, how do you communicate that today? Because he's sitting down with these people, and in the Pharisees' mind, this is who he's sitting with. He's sitting with people that are of low character, right? People that don't measure up to what God's standards are, according to the Pharisees, right? Because they're legalistic. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, this man welcomes sinners and eats with them. All right, so that I know, like I said before, that all of us have had these times where we feel like we've fallen short, where we feel like the sin, there's no way that God can love me because of this sin. Or there's no way I'm going to get back on top again. I've fallen so low. But God is there for you. It isn't God that's causing this condemnation. Right? So then there's the parable, and he goes on to say this. He says, suppose a woman, all right, so first of all, he tells the story about the Pharisees, right? So the Pharisees like, hey, look at him, right? So then he's like, oh, I hear these Pharisees talking smack about me, so let me tell them what I think about these sinful people, or about these people, period. Because if you get this concept, you realize even though you were saved, even though you have come out of sin, at some point you were these sinners. You were these tax collectors and sinners, and God's heart was drawn towards you. And we see that here, right? So then he says, so he wants to compare that. He wants to be able to explain that to you. Right? So this is the parable he uses. He says, or suppose a woman has 10 silver coins and loses one. Doesn't she light a lamp, sweep the house, and search carefully until she finds it? And when she finds it, she calls her friends and neighbors together and says, rejoice with me. I have found my lost coin. In the same way I tell you, there is rejoicing in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents. This lost coin is like I lost, all right, let's just say $20,000. And I'm looking, and I'm knowing, hey, this coin, this 20 grand is going to pay my rent for the next 3 months. I can't find it. I'm looking for it. And my heart is sick because it's lost. And that's the story he uses to talk about us, is we're that important. And I don't know, that is what it explains to me. I don't know in your life what would communicate that to you. It's so much that he just longs for you. He longs for this relationship. He longs for this partnership. If we look back at Genesis, he says we were built in his image. There was a purpose for that. There was a reason for that. It was because he wanted to partner with us on this earth. We've fallen away. His love is so encompassing. Amazing Grace is such a great song to explain that. To explain the amount of grace that God has on us. It's incredible. All right, so that kind of makes that point. Now, there's this hope in resurrection. All right, 1 Peter 1:3 says, "Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. In his great mercy, he has given us new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead." All right, so what is he talking about here? All right, at this point, Peter's getting letters from churches that are getting persecuted. All right, we're not talking simple persecution where, there's not enough numbers. We're talking people are dying. People are getting stoned. It would be like the United States said we couldn't congregate together anymore. And if we did, they were going to send us to prison or to the electric chair or whatever. That's the point that these people come to Peter, and Peter says, listen, our hope is not in this earth. It's in the resurrected body of Jesus Christ. So God had sent his example, right? His son is an example for us to follow and how we should live. And then through that example, he becomes the resurrected body as an example of who we will become as a resurrected body. This resurrected body, the best way to say it is, you know how you have to wear, you're going into a room full of, what's a deadly virus right now? Let's just, all right, we'll just say a deadly virus. You're going in the room without any protection. You're going to catch that virus and you're going to die. Jesus' new body can go into that room and never fear. He has conquered sin and death. He has conquered that death. Our hope is in that body that has conquered the sin. He has conquered the infections. He has conquered the disease. Our hope is in that resurrected body. They said that they saw Jesus after the resurrection. He looked the same. He had the nails in his hand. They weren't allowed to recognize him, but he was a man walking with them. And then he was there, and then he was gone. This is the hope that we have. That body. So if we can't find hope in our situation, we've come to Christ knowing that there was a resurrection. We believe in that resurrection. That resurrection is our hope. And C.S. Lewis said, hope is one of the theological virtues. This means that a continued looking forward to the eternal world is not, as some modern people think, a form of escapism or wishful thinking, but one of the things a Christian is meant to do. It does not mean that we are to leave the present world as it is. If you read history, you will find that the Christians who did the most for the present world were just those who thought most about the next. Amen. So no matter if we have our hope in the other, we have these good times. We saw it in Joseph's life. Running Egypt. We've had those victories in our life and that feeling that we get. It was like when my dad did not take me out. That feeling, that greatness, I get to go. That enjoyment, that fulfillment, that hope. And that's the kind of hope we need to walk with in our lives. We shouldn't let these valleys that we get in separate us from God. God is with us no matter if we're at a down point. And that was not his meaning for us. It was not how he created us. He created us in his image to bring us to partner with him.
Amazing grace, how sweet